Hello, my friend, and welcome back. Today, this is Monday, so I would like to start our week off with a card pull and see what kind of message the divine has for us today. Okay, we pulled a new card. It is Sisterhood of the Rose, Beauty and Devotion, Priestess, Mystic, Teacher. Let me just tune in for a second. So I feel as though this card is telling us kind of about the people that we become and that we are becoming when we start to walk this path of spirituality. And it is when you go through this kind of learning and this kind of enlightenment, not that enlightenment, I guess, is the goal, but when you are on this journey, it really causes you to reshape the person that you are. You really, truly do become a new person. And you become a new person at a cellular level. When you start to do the inner work and you start to release ancestral trauma and trauma that has happened to you in your life, you are actually, I'm not sure what the scientific term is, but kind of rewriting your cells and rewriting your DNA. That is kind of how ancestral trauma works. You carry ancestral trauma because when that trauma happens to your ancestor, that trauma gets written into their DNA, and then their DNA gets passed on to you. So that is how ancestral trauma moves from generation to generation physically. Now, it works the same way with releasing trauma. So when you start to release and process old trauma, you are then releasing it from your DNA, and it allows your DNA to heal. Therefore, you are changing at a cellular level. But the good thing is you are changing it, so you are no longer passing on that DNA, that kind of, I don't want to say damaged, but that scarred DNA. You are able to heal it, and then from that healing, you are able to pass on healed DNA as opposed to wounded DNA. So that is one of the changes that that happens down to a cellular level. But, changes are also happening much more surfacely. You may start to find that you have different interests now. Things that used to interest you no longer interest you. People that you used to enjoy surrounding yourself with may not necessarily feel as good to be around anymore. You are truly changing and transforming on every level. And sometimes it does reflect immensely out in our physical world because how we choose to spend our time, a new career direction that we might go in, a lot of different things might show on the outside. However, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes people on the outside may not necessarily be able to see the changes that are happening within you on the inside. And that is okay, because the biggest changes happen on the inside. The biggest changes are what no one else can see. And that is okay. And we just have to accept that and let go of wanting to be acknowledged for the journey that we're on. I think it's easy to want to get that we take it as encouragement, but we really want that recognition, because we've been doing a lot of inner work on ourselves and adapting really healthy routines and really trying to treat our bodies right. So we may really want someone on the outside to acknowledge that. But because these changes a lot of times aren't recognizable from someone who may not be very close to you, you have to let that desire go, and you have to let your own recognition of how far you have come, you have to let that be enough. And when you are struggling with that and you really want that outside recognition, take a few moments to really reflect upon maybe why you want that recognition, but also you can just take a few minutes to praise yourself, to look at how far you have come, to look at the changes that you know have been implemented, and really, really give yourself a few minutes to pat yourself on the back and to tell yourself how amazing you are and how far you've come and how awesome you're doing and how much of a completely changed and newly evolved person you are and you have been becoming. You know, praise yourself for walking into this sisterhood of the rose and becoming that new beautiful person that you are becoming. And once you do that, you will find that you are able to satisfy that need of, what's the word I'm looking for? Of acknowledgement. That you are able to give yourself the acknowledgement that you are seeking on the outside world. Because remember, if you seek that on the outside world, I can pretty much guarantee that when you get it, it's not going to feel the way you want it to feel. It's not going to be as satisfying as you may feel it should be. You know, it can be rather anticlimactic almost. And that is why you have to get it from within yourself. And through these changes and through this growth, you should be able to give yourself that. And you should be able to find more satisfaction in that as your journey continues. So that is the message that I feel called to share with this card, our beauty and devotion priestess, mystic, teacher, sisterhood of the rose. And you know, it's about being a part of this community, about the spiritually awakened community, and kind of playing our parts and understanding that our roles, one last thing is, our roles can change and evolve, and that is okay, and it is going to happen. That's why priestess, mystic, teacher, we need to stop trying to put ourselves into a little box and putting labels all over those boxes because we've been told by society that we need to define ourselves. We need to know who we are, know who you are, what you like. And we do need to do that, but only to a certain extent, because to define is to limit. And we need not let society define us and to force us into defining ourselves. This card is telling us that we are so many things. You know, priestess, mystic, teacher, those are only the few things that you start to develop and you start to become as you move into this spiritually awakened life and this new lifestyle. You will understand and come to see that you wear many hats. And that is a wonderful, beautiful thing, because defining is limiting, and to put definitions on yourself and to put labels on yourself, why limit yourself like that? Because not only are you limiting yourself in the present moment, but in the future, when that moment comes that you decide that you want to change, that you want to pivot, that you want to try something new, then you might struggle with that a little bit more. There might be a little suffrage around that because you're like, oh, well, I spent so much time defining myself and now I want to do something different, and it's sooner than I was thinking that I want to do something different. Is that okay? And the answer is yes, it's obviously okay. And if you didn't work so hard with pushing yourself into a box so you could limit yourself and define yourself, you would have less struggle pivoting and changing, because you understand that at any moment you could just decide to do something totally different, and that's okay. And it's just, about being in the flow of life and following our intuition, because remember, the divine has no time and no time constructs, and the divine doesn't function inside the definitions and the limits that we function in. And it is only our ego that tells us that we actually function in those. We actually don't function in time and human construct limitations either. We just define it as that through our ego. And these are those times that we need to let that go. Let's get excited about what new changes and possibilities there are. Let's get excited about new roles that we might be stepping into with our beauty and devotion. Let's start to open ourselves up into that beautiful divine light and the divine flow of things. And that is the message that I feel called to share. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Anne, and I hope to see you next time.